Hello all and welcome back to my Darkseed 2 guide read. The guide of course by Leanne Morris. Today I'm tackling Chapter 8, Deep in the Belly of the Dark. Just a reminder, like the last video, I'm adding my logo as a visual indicator for when I go off script. Let's get started. The path leading from the power center takes you to the Dark World map screen. It's as easy to use as the normal world map, and it also helps you see the parallels between the two worlds. You'll see one new feature on both normal and Dark World maps. A new site has exploded onto the map near the carnival picture. It's the portal between worlds. Clicking on it in either world takes you to the map screen of the other world. However, you must first find a data card identifying you as a privileged worker to gain admittance. The photos on the Dark World map mark the power center, which mirrors the carnival, the weaponry area, business district, the food hall / recreation center, downtown, locked house, Mike's house, and halls of government, the civic center. Because you don't have any real clue about where to go in the Dark World, follow the same steps you did when Mike explored Crowley. Next stop, the food hall, which doubles for Hank's Diner. The food hall. Memo to whom it may concern. I've got a new diet aid that doesn't involve drugs, fasting, or exercising. Just blow up pictures of the Dark World food hall and attach them to refrigerators. Watch while guaranteed loss of appetite ensues. If you thought it would be difficult to eat ham and eggs staring at Hank's dirty apron, you'll have a lot more trouble forcing down a repast in the food hall. At least it's not an odorama. Mike says it smells like rotten meat. Man, this would, Can you imagine if they did give us a scratch and sniff card, kind of like those Earthbound cards of those Spy Kids movies? That could be really gross. A woman's head is suspended on the wall where Hank's jukebox would be. Mike tries to play a tune, but the woman tells him that vermin have destroyed her machinery. Mike can see rat-like creatures peeking through the holes in the wall. A bloated and pulsating blob is behind the bar, and there's also a piece of meat that Mike can pick up. So I feel like I make that joke every time, but it's still funny to me. Anyway, Mike, proving himself a wordsmith, says its tubes look like they're filled with a sickening blend of blood and pus. Hungry yet? A gray octopus-looking carcass lies on the bar, and when Mike asks to take it, the bartender agrees readily. Mike adds it to his inventory, sticking it, we hope, in a Ziploc bag first. I honestly think it just goes right into the breast pocket of his jacket, but that's just me. Then he talks to the bartender, who's starved for company and business since the ancients began their reign of terror. Food deliveries have stopped, although he still has some rations of liquefied entrails. Wahoo! And his only customers are a few privileged workers. Privileged workers are, for example, the Dreketh guards and the Dark World judges who carry out the Ancients' will in return for special treatment. But the Ancients force everyone to turn over all their proceeds, and the only person brave enough, or foolish enough, to lead a revolt has been locked up next door. Mike leaves knowing that the bartender is a little nervous talking to an quote-unquote organic creature. It's possible that Mike could free the imprisoned fool who led the revolt and enlist his aid in defeating the Ancients. Death alert, do not order anything to drink. The indigestion is incredible. The Recreation Center. But the Rec Center will disappoint Mike. A door secured by a power lock has replaced the exit, which in the normal world leads to the alley and Slim's shack. He won't be able to open it unless he can turn off the electricity. Only 3 people are in the Recreation Center, but none pays any attention to Mike, who gets lightheaded from fumes. The Melissa clone is hooked up to a smoking machine. She tells Mike to leave her alone while she's ventilating. A disembodied head is all Mike can see of the man using the machine hanging from the back wall. The machine stimulates the user with energy beams, and Mike says he's never seen anyone so deliriously happy. The husk of another man, Jimmy's counterpart, is receiving drugs intravenously. He tells Mike he's floating. Death alert, don't attempt to talk to the man in the happy canister. You'd be in for a shock. You know, one thing that it doesn't mention here, but it does mention somewhere else, is if you try to pick the locks. I don't know, maybe this door is one you can't pick, but if you do pick the locks, you die from that too in the Dark World. Anyway, I'm probably getting ahead of myself. The other objects in the room also seem intended for people with painful dependencies. There's even a wheel of hypodermic needles where the Q-stick rack was in the normal world pool hall. Mike's obviously not going to learn anything from these addicts, so he might as well leave. The halls of government. The best way to see how a government works is to watch it in action. That philosophy, Mike discovers, works a lot better in theory than in reality. The bartender has warned Mike to stay away from the Hall of Justice, where they don't look kindly on organics. But he needs to find out how the upper echelon of the Dark World works. The halls of government are laid out in a mirror image of the normal world civic center. So the Hall of Troopers, the sheriff's office, is on the left. The Hall of Justice, court, is still in the middle, and the Hall of Death, morgue, is on the right. Unwilling to venture into the Hall of Troopers where people are likely to be armed, Mike takes the offices in reverse order. But the Hall of Death offers little to see. Like the normal world's morgue, it has a waiting room with a locked power door that keeps Mike from going farther. The room smells like graveyard dirt, and Dark Worlders are enjoying a well-mounted torture platform. Before Mike even steps into the Hall of Justice, he sees a quote-unquote trial in progress. A privileged worker on a meat hook suspended from a mechanized track is brought up before the judge, whose pointed quote-unquote dunce cap attire makes him look like a clown. The judge accuses the worker of rebellion, but because of the worker's many years of service to the Dark World, he mercifully sentences him only to death, not to public humiliation like the leader of the revolt. The obsequious worker, although he had claimed his innocence, thanks the judge for his consideration before the track removes him from the room. When Mike enters the chamber, he is horrified to see that the keeper of the sword has been crucified above the judge's chair. A locked cabinet to the right of the judge is gently glowing. Mike decides it's where the evidence is kept. The minute Mike speaks to the judge, he knows he's in over his head. Nothing he says seems to make any difference. He can either support the judge's decision to kill the worker or not. He can claim to be loyal to the Ancients or not, or he can claim to be a Dark Worlder or not. He will be sentenced to death or simply ordered to report to the Hall of Death. Either way, it's a trip he had really hoped not to make. The meat hook returns, catches Mike squarely in the back, and whisks him away. The Hall of Death. Once again, Mike's sorry he didn't pack his pockets with air fresheners before setting off to the Dark World. The Hall of Death, charmingly, smells like a mountain of rotting meat. The ground is covered with the bones of 1 million dead minions, including the latest victim, the privileged worker Mike just saw sentenced to death. Luckily, the victim's body pod is still basically intact, including the data card on his belt. Mike reaches over to pick up the card, but it falls into the center of the room. When he bends over to get it, he finds himself involved in a tug-of-war with a skeleton. Nice shock value, but he pulls it loose in a few seconds, and adds it to his inventory. Alright, a quick note here. A note about combat. Mike's quote-unquote fight with the skeleton brings up the point that Darkseed 2 includes no arcade fighting. Mike will never make you prove that you know fencing as well as he does, so when you hear terrifying tales of the behemoth and your eventual battle with him, don't get nervous. Even those of us with the most pathetic reflexes can win the game. Alright, back to the main story. Or strategy guide, sorry. But he's still stuck in the hall. The room has no exit, just a huge number of corpses and a life force leech Mike remembers, without any pleasure, from his first journey to the Dark World. But he has no choice. He enters the ray of the leech and dies. The end. Oh, wait, no, I'm just kidding. That's the end of that chapter, though. So in this chapter, we've added the Dark World food and the data card to Mike's inventory. Mike has met, or encountered would be a better word, the bartender, the rec center addicts, and the justice. Alright, so let me flip back to the beginning of the chapter and go through the pictures. Alright, first one up is the Dark World map. Each photo is located in the same spot as the normal world counterpart. Notice, however, the new location, a portal between the dark and normal worlds. You know, I was thinking, if everything is supposed to be backwards in the Dark World, then why aren't they, or is it? Let me go back to chapter 2 or 3 actually. Yeah, the pictures are on the same part of the HUD there. I wonder if they just couldn't change it, or like they finished it and didn't feel like redoing it. Because in theory, you know, you'd think that Mike's home would be on the right side, the bottom right, as opposed to the bottom left, since it's the Dark World and all. Anyway, sorry, I'm just babbling now. The next one is a picture of the bartender. The bartender in the food hall tells Mike that executions are taking place in the Hall of Justice. He sure does. Alright, next one is in the rec center. Dark Worlders come to the recreation center to tune in, turn on, and drop out. It's surprising the joint's not more crowded. Well, they didn't have the budget for that. Alright, this is from the trial, or just the pictures from the trial, but the caption is when Mike enters. Mike's too late to help the keeper of the sword. She's already been executed in the Hall of Justice. Alright, and the last one is with the Hall of Death. Mike picks up the all-important data card in the Hall of Death, but he pays for it with the ultimate price, death. I mean, the only way out of there is death. Oh my goodness. Well, as always, I hope you enjoyed this video and got a few laughs here and there. As always, thank you for watching. Hey y'all, a beta version demo of my game, Tales of Hyperia the Crimson Knight, is available to play over at my itch.io page. The link is down in the description. The final demo version is set to release by the end of the year, and will see massive improvements and upscaling. Make sure you stay tuned for updates.